Boop, boop, boop.
Boop, 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 boop.
Okay. So, hey, Jax gets to see me fucking with everything. Apparently, he gets to look up half my butt there for a second. Sorry about that, Jax.
Well, that was fun. Fun.
I will not start twerking. As fun as it would be.
Chum is fun.
Everything is actually. Things are where they're thinking and supposed to be thinking and things. There's that thing, because Unity that.
Thing on the thing, doing the thing it does.
I keep beeping. I think I'm not beeping.
Did you notice Jeff?
I did. Well, it's not Jeff because it's colored slightly differently to avoid copyright infringement.
Right, right.
Yeah. Oh my God. Jesus. Somebody who go nameless is sending messages by the billions. You know? You know. We know.
Of course.
Half the battle.
The other half is lasers. Red lasers and blue lasers.
I don't know. Anymore, lasers seem kind of weak compared to weak sauce compared to some of the stuff we can use. I think we would. Hey, look, I'm dropping quarters.
That's disturbing. One of the exclusive covers is if the Powerpuff Girls were human.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
You want the mouse? Squeak, squeak.
Oh, there's mice.
Kill them.
You know what I really need? I am actually not gonna fuck around tonight. I'm gonna go get my hat. Because this time I do know it's downstairs on the place that is where you sit when you're doing work and stuff.
Ah, the thing.
You know when you're having fun.
Thing, doing the thing with his thing on your thing. Fun.
Sounds like you're describing a night.
Well, one Thailand Dada.
You never know what you're getting when it's from behind.
I don't want it from behind. How do you spell Gouda, like the cheese? Is it Gouda?
Are you coming in on?
Um,
Our new guy is a mutant sky, and I guess he's planning on coming in on. Uh, Saturday, because that new Wolverine came out. He's just like over at Hancock. Yeah, he hasn't really collected much for quite a while. So, yeah, he's kind
Okay,
of
so
looking forward to
Saturday?
meeting you. Yeah,
Okay.
he's a mutiny dude. I figured you'll get along well with him. All you muties get along fine. Us indies are gonna go do our own thing. We have stars upon ours. My stockings and everything. Ugh.
All right. I have submitted it to Sarah that, if possible, I'd like to work Saturday instead of Sunday. It's someone's coming in that needs my help.
No, it's not that big. It's
If I don't phrase it like that,
okay. It's that Don Hayes dude. Like you could respond to him later if you want to, and Meta.
all right.
Meta's fun. Sorry. Fun.
All right. So
Are you having fun?
I am, and it looks like we're zoomed in a little bit more than usual, and I have to say I like it better.
Needs more boob, but yeah.
It needs what?
Nothing.
More boob?
Maybe.
Yeah, because that's what the guys want to watch.
Dude, have you ever seen like the videos where it's like an armpit and then they like zoomed in and you know it's like oh what oh no.
I saw one where it was this girl rubbing her eye, and then they like rotate and then pull back, and it's like, oh, it's an eye.
Wow.
On that note, ready?
Whatever.
We're all gonna die.
Yeah.
All right.
Have you seen there's a comet, not comet, asteroid, Apophis, gonna fuck us up? Maybe, possibly, at some point.
I had not seen that.
Like 29 or something like that is the one that could be the one that's really scary. But there's a bunch of people that are like, yeah, the only reason they say it's gonna miss us this coming year is because they don't want us in a panic and blah 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 blah. You know, it's like, well, that would make sense. God damn tinfoil.
I don't think we're quite ready for God to finally just pull the plug on us. We haven't suffered enough. That's why we have this upcoming election.
That's why an asteroid or something's perfect. I mean, honestly, if you look at it from the aspect of, let's say the rapture is a quick, immediate death, right? And that's not that's painless, etc., so on and so forth. There's a lot of asteroid and meteor possibilities that would fall into that category where it would wipe out swaths in areas that would be so quote unquote
Well, if you got a big enough one and the dust clouding out the sun and blah blah blah.
yeah, and that's where the other side is. That's where the the pain, the suffering, and all that needs to come for the sinners comes in, because now you can't grow crops, there's starvation, there's all of this stuff. So you getting your horsemen taken care of strictly by the fact of the natural possibility of either a asteroid or like even like a super volcano would do it.
On that note,
Hold on. Now this one I actually have to deal with. Sorry. Like I'm sitting here, I'm like, what is tickling? Dude, it's like tickling the top of my nose. Anyway.
it's like the thing that Schwarzenegger pulls out of his nose in Total Recall.
Oh, right? And then you finally get it out, and it turns out to be one hair that's like this long. It's like, what the hell?
I hate the sharp boogers where it's like someone shoved a thorn up your nose.
Oh, yeah. Like they get super dried to where they're kind of knifey.
Yeah, those. Jack, I hope you're appreciating all of this
Nice
dazzling
flip.
conversation.
Hoo-yah!
Cut it out.
What? Huh?
Cut it out.
What?
Dave Coulier.
Phlegm knife. Jeff.
Jeff. Jeff. Which is confusing why he has an X-Men tag and an X-Men tube on.
Yeah.
All right.
You saw the time knife.
All right. Welcome to the Ark.
Yep.
No, let's try that. Let's try that again.
No. What?
Cut. Take 2. Hi, and welcome to Comics from the Ark for the week of August 21st. Discussing this week's comics. Once again, we have Devin, owner of Second Impression Comics, and me, Jeff, the better employee. Discussing our picks for the week.
Kind of.
Kind of. It'll be fun. Inside joke. Just roll with it. All right. So,
Somebody had to change your pick because somebody else got bossy.
God, yeah. The one I was really looking forward to, I started it up, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, Jeff, what are you reading? Well, I'm reading Powerpuff Girls.
Oh, guess what I read?
Read something
I read it
else.
first.
I already read it. But that's okay, because we have a double Kelly week. So
That works. That works. Anyway, that being said, I read Powerpuff Girls. It was fun. No, it really was exactly what you'd want it to be. Classic Mojo interaction from each side of it, tactician side, dealing with Blossom, dealing, just I want to punch you side coming from Buttercup, and then, Bubbles doing the normal just Bubbles thing, having a tea party.
right.
So, and yet again, you get to see Mojo react to each of those, because they do it's really fun thing. This doesn't give away a whole lot, but where he kind of enters each one of their dreams, and he like he enters into Blossoms, and he ends up playing board games with her, he's getting beat and everything like that. And then he goes into Buttercups, and, she's like, as soon as she sees him, it's like, ooh, punch, and just rails on him for, the entire dream sequence until he takes off the dream hat, basically.
Right.
And then he goes into Bubbles, and, it's nothing competitive or anything. She invites him to sit down and have a tea party.
It'll be fun.
Yeah, exactly. And he ends up thinking about it, and he's like, wait a minute, something had been poisoned or something. But he goes back and realizes that it was literally just a tea party, and she was being nice and inviting him. And so he sat down to a real tea party with her.
She was genuinely that nice of a person.
Yeah.
Even in her dreams, there were no ulterior motives, and she was just a nice person.
Exactly. Well,
and maybe it takes getting beaten up for you to realize it.
Yeah. Well, and she's always been such a fun character with it, out of the three of them, because even the times they turn her kind of evil-ish, she's funny evil.
Yeah,
Like when she turns
her
into Mojo
her
Jojo.
her evil level spikes, that far off the ground. I will take all the jelly beans from the world. Mwah!
Well, my favorite one was when she ended up being Mojo Jojo.
Oh my god, that was a great episode.
There can only be one Mojo Jojo. 2 Mojo Jojos is too many, and 3 is right out.
Very holy hand grenade.
Oh,
Really.
it's beautiful. But like I said, they still portrayed that same level of kind of innocence that comes with everything they've done with the character all the way through the series. Well, the original series.
Yeah.
I've heard the new one isn't all that wonderful.
Yeah, I watched like 2 episodes of the reboot that they tried a few years back, and it was
Is it as bad as the Animaniacs reboot?
uh yeah, about equal disappointing. It was just like,
Yeah.
dear God, like, I was looking forward to this, and in matter of 5 minutes, you completely killed it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't give me anything I wanted out of the Animaniacs reboot at all. I mean, it used to be just straight slapstick humor, and now they're trying to make it
And they would pepper in pop culture and
yeah, but it was slapstick version of it.
right.
It was
It wasn't trying to indoctrinate anybody or.
Oh, even outside of indoctrinating, just straight up preachy in some aspects. It's like it's the reason that Captain Planet eventually got canceled. You can only get preached at by the Planet Man so many times.
Yeah, I know. I'm murdering the planet. Tell me something I don't know.
Yeah. Thanks. Wonderful. Freaking kids. That's why I love that they addressed the Captain Planet thing actually in Rick and Morty too. With what's her name? Fantina or something. Like it's a female kind of Captain Planet that Morty ends up dating. Which, by the way, if that would be one of the 4 possibly. So. And by the way, what I'm referring to is Jeff's agreed to watch 4 episodes of Rick and Morty. I have to pick the 4. So if you have any suggestions,
I've
feel
already
free.
seen the Die Hard one.
Yeah.
And that was not as good as I was led to believe.
Roy is, if you're going to do something kind of, off kilter that direction, the video game Roy one, I can't remember what the episode is called, is a really good one. Basically, it's a video game that you get augmented into a reality so real that you literally feel like you lived the entire life of Roy.
Okay.
And, like, the first time Morty comes out of the video game, it's like early in the episode, he's like, whoa, what, where am I? What is happening? Like, he can't even remember he's Morty anymore, because he's like, wait a minute, I was Roy, I was just with my grandchildren, I was, So.
Maybe you've told me about that episode before, but it sounds familiar.
Yeah, probably, because it's one of those really kind of ultra deep episodes, honestly. A lot of them, I mean, there's vulgar humor throughout. There's a lot of, just craziness going on. But at the end of the day, I mean, the depth of characters and the depth of the lessons learned from each episode is actually pretty amazing. I mean, it's everything from, learning that maybe sometimes you should allow stuff to happen, because it's for a greater good, even though what seems to be happening doesn't look good, kind of the eye for an eye type thing on multiple occasions. The fact that revenge doesn't necessarily, when you enact your revenge, not necessarily solving all your problems. I mean, it's just like they're constantly hitting these like really deep emotional states, and they're making light of them, but you're learning something heavy along the way.
For the record, there's an episode of Futurama that I refuse to watch anymore. It was one with, what's the dog's name? Seymour?
Yep, Seymour.
Where it was flashing back to Fry's past, and he had this dog, Seymour, and the dog was so very loyal. and waited till his death for Fry to come back. And
Right in front of the pizza place. And Fry had made the comment. What was the worst about that was the comment Fry made right before that, which was, I bet he had a wonderful long life.
and then they found his body in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
God, just gut me. Seriously, gut me.
That
I
one
refuse
was
to.
rough.
That one I refuse to watch. All the other ones, I don't care how deep or philosophical or mind blowing it is. I refuse to watch that one.
No, that one's bad. I mean, as far as like emotionally, I mean, existential crisis is one thing. Making you sob like an infant is a whole different ballgame. Yeah.
Good story. But anyway, speaking of cartoons,
So
we were talking about a comic book based on a cartoon.
I know.
All right. I will say that I had to read it before he spoiled anything.
Yeah.
The art in it was very much along the lines of the original TV show.
It really is. It's kind of like if you brought it just straight off the CRT, basically.
It's. I know that I sound like a broken record whenever I mention it, but it's Kelly Thompson,
It was fun.
who is a wonderful writer, and her pacing, her sensibilities, everything that she does and brings to the comic, I enjoy. And there's a reason why I hunted down every piece of work that she has done. Fun. I will say that as you read it, you can definitely hear everything that is written down in the voices of each of the characters, especially Mojo Jojo.
Mojo is probably the truest to form out of all of them. The rest of them, it's pretty. Don't get me wrong, it's pretty spot on. But there's places where, it could float, maybe a slight bit out of character. But Mojo, I mean, every time he was speaking, it was. But of course, with him, it's kind of like writing dialogue for Yoda. It's not exactly hard. You have to follow a certain
Cadence.
not only cadence, but it's like the pig Latin of sentences. you know.
It has a unique structure to his communication.
Yeah, you can write any sentence down, and then all you gotta do is move two things around, and you're in Yoda speak.
Speak it is.
Basically.
Well, on that note, for my book this week, then, because somebody else chose the book I was going to read, I picked up Black Cloak.
Read sooner.
I picked up Cloak, which is Kelly's own personal book that she started. It is a detective crime noir set in a fantasy land that we pick up a year after the last issue had been written or was published. So there's literally a year gap between issue 5 and issue 6. And I will say, or between 6 and 7. And I will say that I'm probably going to go back and reread now, because that's enough time where you're like, okay, I remember what happened, but I don't remember why. Or, some of the... But we are coming in to this book. It's like a new chapter of the story, set at a time 5 years after the previous issue. There was...
And this is issue...
This is issue 7.
7, okay.
In the first story arc, they had kind of a high town, low town situation where you had the cream of the crop society, living in the pristine housing, and then you have the gutter, basically, and everybody is kind of scurrying around, what have you.
Yeah.
The police in this fantasy world are referred to as the Black Cloaks. They have as you can imagine, black cloaks. And there is a crime in the first story arc where kind of the prince of the land is found dead in an hourly rate motel.
Mhm.
And it leads to a series of investigation which leads to further corruption and weird things going on. And
Maybe
it
he
really
just went there
fans
for
out.
the hour.
Anyway, Kelly is really good at world development in this. She develops kind of a society, the norms, how people believe, and there was so much going on that it takes a couple of readings to really pick up everything that she's doing in the book. And so that's part of the reason why I need to go back and reread it, just because I feel like I'm missing on something that I have forgotten. However, we pick up 5 years later. The two police officers from the previous story are no longer working together. One had to step out of her role because she didn't feel like she could continue being a cop after everything that had transpired in the first story. But there's a new murder, and this guy swallows his pride, goes back to his former partner, asks for help, and she all plays it
Wow.
cool, and I don't need this, and I don't care, and
That's a world to live in right there. 2 murders basically over a 5-year span. That's pretty good.
well, two that they're focusing on.
I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? If murder rate of 2 over 5 years, that's
Well, maybe that the other murders were easy enough to solve, but these are special cases.
or they happened down on Skid Row and they didn't care.
That's right. Anyway, so she's brought in because she is very good at her job, and he needs the help. And so it kind of, we're seeing how the world had changed in the 5 years, and now we have to pick at the scab and start anew on a new murder that has happened. A specific one. Actually, 4. Because
Oh, okay, it's 4 separate murders. So
this
so-
starts off
so
with
you're
there's
still talking only 1 murder a year, though.
Oh yeah, great average. However, the 4 murders that are happening here happened within the course of a couple of days.
That's still just 1 a year, though.
Overall, yeah,
per cap.
great average.
Yeah,
So anyway,
great society.
after examining the crime scene and seeing how they're all similar, the guy wasn't feeling like he was getting it, and he needed help. So he went to his former partner and recruited her for this case. They start to investigate the latest crime scene, and that's when stuff spirals out from there. And again, I won't go into a lot of detail.
I feel there may be a 6th murder in the future.
I will say though, it is a very unique art style. It's not what I generally go with. And the first time that I read the story arc, the first couple of issues, it took me a while to kind of
Reminds me of something. I can't put my finger on it.
it is a simplified style, and it actually lends itself to expression quite well. However, I felt like I needed something else. By the end, I was really starting to kind of go with it, and it was starting to click for me. It just took a little while for me to get adjusted to it.
Okay.
That said, the art, once you get past the style, it really does again lend itself to expressions, and as you read, you're really feeling for these characters. And there is a part during this where comically, no pun intended, we even have the awkward reunion over tea where it's like, I haven't seen you in 5 years, like, take a sip, and then like, so how was the weather? And they start kind of playing up the paneling for comedic, but realistic world. And she finally ends it with, "So are you gonna show me why you're here, or did you really just come for some shitty tea?" And
Mm-hmm.
and so it does have a realistic level of humor where it's like, okay, I don't know how to break the ice, and so I'm gonna just awkwardly sit here until somebody else does it for me. And
Yeah.
so uh, again, the what Kelly does so well is writing people with actual real emotions, real backstory. It's
So
not.
this is going to be an ongoing, basically. This
I
just
feel
new
like it
part
is
of
going
the
to be an
arc.
ongoing, but it may be um, in batches or chapters where you say, okay, well, 1 through 6 was this storyline. Maybe it's going to be 7 through 12, and so forth.
So kind of like what they did with, for example, I think Ice Cream Man is one of them that's done it, where there's like it breaks down into sections,
Right.
things like that.
Um,
So
but again, she writes realistic people, even if it's in a fantasy world. You get a sense that these are real people with real emotions. Something that some of the Marvel books have really been lacking on. It feels like you just kind of go through the motions, and it's like, okay, why do we care? Why does this person care?
well, and if you go back to like the 80s and early 90s and so on, um, and I mean real early 90s on it is mostly 80s. First Comics was exceedingly good at doing the same exact thing with the way they wrote. You had a clear understanding for the character, regardless of where it was being placed. What dimension it was in, what type of completely outlandish scenario it was in. Like for example, the Grim Jack series. He's a demon hunter, yet you were dealing with start with John Gaunt and then eventually James Twiley turning into Grim Jack. The backstory of those characters, and you could feel for them, and they actually had a almost humanity about them, even though they were in extraordinary circumstances. So, and it sounds like that's kind of the same thing they're doing here.
Right. Well, and I know that we come from a different era of comic books, but I do remember when Peter Parker, was trying to fight crime while fighting allergies or having a cold or a fever, and then still worrying about, buying a gift for Aunt May or celebrating, Harry's sobriety. There were real things going on,
Mm-hmm.
and he went through that stuff on his way to fight a villain or even while fighting the villain, and they focused on more than just plot points,
Yeah.
and it led for and it carried over too. What happened in this issue, a couple of issues later, they may reference it, and you had a sense of continuity. Anymore, it feels like we're writing strictly for trade paperbacks. We're gonna write this story arc, and we're gonna call that good. We're gonna move on to the next, and you can pick up at any point in time and just continue reading, and you don't even have to really know what came before.
Well, and the key to what you're saying there really isn't so much not knowing what came before or anything like that, as much as they're planning it into a specific size. That's why that's
They're blocking it or
yeah,
chunking it.
yeah, that's where your average 14.99 to 16.99 trade paperback is a 4-issue run. Your 19.99 ones are a 6-issue run. And I mean you can really start seeing a correlation between. So
Which that'll probably go up as the cover price of comics also goes up. Which
substantially, I'm sure.
again, as a talking point that we've had numerous times is the cover price.
Well, and honestly, I think the bigger problem with the cover price increasing is while they're increasing the cover price, they are simultaneously um, substantially decreasing the quality of the cover paper and the ink that's being used. Um, you're seeing on a very regular basis at this point where it doesn't take much. I mean, you just putting the book into a bag basically can start rubbing the ink off because the paper is such a waxy paper. There's no way for to have the
Absorb.
ink actually impregnated into it. So it's unfortunate to see Marvel kind of head this direction, but at the same time, it's going to make certain books from certain times where they've tried to really cut corners, substantially more rare, and that's how you end up with some of those rare books in the long run. I mean, a good example of that would be that Chasm book that came out,
Yeah.
where it was kind of like almost a webhead type feel to it. But yeah, it's what we have like 95% of those just absolutely decimated.
Yeah.
It was like tissue paper on the cover.
Well, and actually, that kind of leads me to a different point that recently we've also been readdressing the subscription pull plan through the store.
Yeah.
And, you're always good about making sure that the pull boxes get the first and the best.
Mm-hmm.
That way if 50% of the books that came out are ripped up or dinged up or unpresentable,
Yeah.
then the
They
ones
go to
that
the whole
are
boxes first, and
right,
then out to the racks. Yeah.
So it is worth pointing out that there is a benefit to having a pull box.
Yeah.
Not that we don't appreciate all of our customers, but we want to make sure that the
But to be
committed.
Fair, this is one of the places where you have a problem showing up in multiple places. I have a lot of friends that are kind of scattered across the country, and from well, basically I didn't sit one place very long until recently. So, and the general consensus is that seems to be not the standard anymore. Like the standard in a lot of your bigger shops, especially especially where I'm talking to people out in West Coast large city stores and stuff like that. They're going to make sure that they put all a lot of their best and stuff up on their rack because they want to be able to sell off the rack. And then they're trying to pawn off the crap on the hold box customers, or just letting them know, hey, we have them on back order.
Well, and again,
Or the other option that you have seen not only recently, but over the last 4 or 5 years, is an issue being massively damaged, like say 50 to 70% of all of them being damaged, and it's being a first appearance, or it's got something other special going on, so it's got a spiked price. Some of these stores are taking those books and they're not, there's no new this week or anything. It's automatically behind the counter, 10, 15, $20,
pricing it for eBay. And
yeah, and it's the same thing you see from all kinds of different places. You have gaming stores doing it with like some of the Magic decks and stuff like that, and some of the Lorcana decks. You've got basically everywhere does it, unless it's a big box store. Because the big box stores get bought out and then everybody runs home, throws it on eBay, so if you're selling below eBay price, you're just gonna, never have product. Well, that seems like a no-brainer to me, but at the same time, if you don't have anything to sell to your normal customers, you're not going to have customers.
And again, not to kiss ass, but there's a certain code of ethics that we try to follow here because we're collectors and that's why we do this. It's not a matter of we have to pay the mortgage or anything, and so we're gonna try to completely leverage everything and sell at that price point.
And in the 80s and 90s, out in Cheyenne, Wyoming, where I got really, really into comics, after, my initial introduction, when I'd go down to visit my cousins in the city and stuff like that. Cheyenne, Wyoming had a little place called Comic Quest. And it was probably I'd say it is absolutely the primary thing that I have based a lot of my business practices on. Not only the way I handle, like my pool boxes and stuff like that, but the design of my bins, everything. Because I can still remember this little store in the strip mall that had, the custom made big wood bins, in the middle, and then, books on the wall, and just really just nice homey place. And the lady that ran it, had been collecting for years, of course, and this was it was her retirement. I think she kept it open for probably 15, 20 years or so. But I took a lot from that because I was starting to see what was coming out of what I started to consider corporate comics, which was maximize profits, at the expense of pretty much anything, and, up to and including, and this is one of the places where I've got a major problem with a lot of the online sales is your cities are always going to be able to afford a higher dollar. Okay, and it's because their cost of living there is higher versus the cost of living for example, here in Walnut, Iowa. Now, if I sold my books out of, my store for the same price that I sell them out of my store on eBay, the people from the city have a far better chance of getting them because they have more expendable income in actual dollars. It's not worth more because of where they live, but there's more expendable dollars there that they can put toward it versus somebody that, lives locally. And so you have to be able to sit down and understand that you can't strip mine an area. Because if I start doing exactly that, where are all your big dollar collections going to end up? Where are all your full runs of Avengers, Fantastic Four, Amazing Spider-Man, all that? They're all going to end up in the middle of the hearts of the cities. You're never going to find those collections, showing up in the basement, in Iowa, or, somebody, in a small town somewhere. And so why try to propagate that problem?
Well, and again, that would be kind of where I fell into with the code of ethics. You're trying to look out for everybody equally. And I will say that, as a different perspective on it, like if you live in Atlantic, Iowa, population 7,000, not even 7,000 anymore, dropping.
Well, yeah, because things, but anyway.
But anyway, if you live and work in Atlantic, Iowa, and then go to Chicago, your money isn't going to go nearly as far.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you are in Chicago and you decide to slum it for the weekend and you come out to Atlantic, Iowa, man, stuff is going to be so cheap that you can, eat an entire day's worth of food on what you would pay for like one meal in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, and I remember that even from the basics of, there would be times I'd go from Utah to New York and have to spend like a few days out there, and man, the difference in prices, it was absolutely insane. Even if you went McDonald's to McDonald's, for example, what would cost me $5 in Utah was costing me $15 to $20 in New York. Well, with downtown Manhattan, technically.
Yeah.
But I mean, yet again, it's showing you exactly what you're talking about. There's more expendable dollars, not expendable income.
And so, making sure that everybody gets an opportunity to buy these books, which is part of the reason why you don't sell online.
Well, and it's fun to have the guy standing at the door every now and then. That I think that was one of my favorite ones. It's a guy that traveled like 6 hours to get Strange Tales 110 out of the store. And, he called me, it was very early in the morning, just to make sure I even still had it. So,
Worth it? Oh, it's in the bin between 109 and 111.
Yeah, that kind of broke it a little bit, I think. But, no, it's it's something that needs to be adopted, I think, on a larger scale. Kind of, across the smaller stores in the country, and you see a lot of stores starting to do it. They're trying to keep their stuff local. They're trying to keep the stuff within their local collections and with their people, because if they're not supporting their people properly, who is?
Well, and you could even apply it on a larger scale and not even discuss stores, but you could just say that part of the problem that we're facing as a society, and I'll make my soapbox stand real brief, is that for too long people have been wondering, how can I benefit this? What can I do to profit off of this in any regards, in any aspect? And we have gotten away from being a society that try to put everybody before themselves, and we have now flipped it so that we're more concerned for our own well-being than everybody else.
Well, and taking another look at it, a secondary thing that's probably contributing to it is things like eBay, Amazon, all these places that you can so easily, like, just with one click, you get exactly what you want, then it magically appears at your doorstep 2 days, 3 days later. You're fighting against the human tendency to want to tend toward convenience versus tending toward that which is more difficult. It's going back to the old adage. You've come to your choice. Do you take the easy path, or do you take the path less traveled by? You take the path less. For me, I take the path less traveled by, because while it's more difficult, it's more fulfilling at the same time. You see more.
I won't lie. I dabble between the two, and that comes from, for a while we were a single income household, and I didn't have the ability to support, the local businesses.
Well, you didn't have the option necessarily, though, either.
True. But, now that I have the ability that I can, put money in other people's pocket, and I get what I want, and I'm not hurting myself in the process.
Yeah.
Then I'm making everybody happy that way.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Big Fish?
No, I remember when I worked at the movie theater, it was one of the trailers that I played every night, but I never actually saw it.
You really, okay. First of all, grab a box of tissue.
I didn't think it was going to be a masturbatory movie.
No, it's not. It's not. There's about 2 scenes in it that, I mean, it's kind of like watching Simba get held up off the rock for me. It tugs at the emotion just a little bit too much. It's like watching Bing Bong fade into existence. It's goddamn Bing Bong, and it's still just anyway. In Big Fish, at one point he has figured out that he is too big for the town that he lives in, and to actually expand and become all that he needs to become, he needs to expand the size of his pond. It's constantly a fish analogy going through this, or a dealing with some old saying or phrase or something. And when he leaves, part of it is he takes the giant with him, and you'd have to watch the movie to understand. And those watching, those seeing the movie, you get this. But they come to exactly that, the fork in the road, and he decides to go down, and it's just like horrible. It's spider webs. It's it's like brambles and everything. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it opens up into lush green grass down the center of 2 rows of old houses and businesses, with people just kind of relaxing, and stuff like that. Steve Buscemi plays one of the characters in the town, actually. God, I love Steve Buscemi as an actor. Anyway, but the point is, he's super happy for having seen this, and having taken that path. Well, he comes back years later and sees that the town has fallen into great disrepair. And it goes back to what you were saying, which was in thanks for allowing him to have the joy of experiencing the name of the town was Spectre in its glory. He went about making sure to revitalize Spectre to its glory and ensured that under a trust it would always be maintained as such, and it would never be, it wasn't to make it some tourist attraction or anything. It was just to make it better for the people, and thanks for what they did for him, just for that short amount of memory from before.
It almost sounds kind of like what they did in the movie Cars.
Yeah, very similar actually. Yep.
For those with a smaller attention span.
Yeah. Well.
Ka-chow.
Well, not only that, but it doesn't hurt that I've seen Cars and you haven't seen. It's kind of like 90% of the time you haven't seen the movies that it's like, how am I supposed to tell you a story if I can't, tell you shock up when the walls fell? I mean, come on, man.
Get a thesaurus. So that you can explain.
Shock up when the walls fell.
Hookah shaka, hookah shaka. Well, anyway, on this rambly, all sorts of confusing conversation.
No, it makes sense, I think, somewhat.
Yeah, we got there eventually.
Yeah. Point is, you take it.
Wake up or ending.
Yeah. You take up the smaller. You take care of your smaller towns. You take care of your smaller areas, and there's a reward in doing so. That because you get to the same communities that get to form in the city stores can be formed out here. It's just you have to travel a little further.
Well, and as I've gotten older, I've also realized that slowing down and enjoying things and doing things at a certain pace is more enjoyable. But when you're young and dumb and full of cum, you're out tearing up the world and you're trying to carve out your place and try to, acquire all that you can very rapidly, and then you realize that isn't what's going to make you happy.
Kind of. Yeah.
We get there eventually, but
I don't know. I stand by most of the crazy crap I did when I was younger, but of course, made me the wonderful person I am today.
And on that note, I think we'll call it a night. But thank you for tuning in. And again, if you're a Rick and Morty fan and want to make a recommendation for what I'm going to watch, go for it. I'm there is a trade-off. I am getting Devin to watch Firefly, and so
I've been plugging through it. It's not not my normal cup of tea, but it's not bad though either. It's kind of like
glowing praise indeed.
Well, no, it's along the same lines as I know that there are a lot of people out there that really dug Voyager, for example. I wasn't one of them.
Were you a Deep Space Nine?
Very Deep Space Nine, though. Now, to be fair, it was mostly for Quark.
Why does that not surprise me?
I have the right name, right?
Yeah.
The Ferengi. Yep.
Actually, I think it's kind of funny. We get done talking about, using business practices to help a community, and then you turn around and point out that you like Quark, who was all about the profit.
But think about it. He was all about the profit, and he was all about, he followed the rules of acquisition to a T. But keep in mind, he understood that to maintain everything, there has to be a certain level of benevolence. Otherwise, you're going to lose everybody. So you have to be able to balance being a businessman with being a personable, individual as well. I mean, take a look at some of those later seasons of DS9 where you start seeing Quark literally turn into almost a really decent Ferengi. I don't want to say person. I like Does person still work for Frankie?
I would say person uh, can be used to describe an individual,
That
not
can't be-
necessarily of a particular race or species.
That's what I was wondering.
Although you wouldn't refer to a single bear as a person.
No, that is bipedalism the point. But at that point, you could call a kangaroo a person.
Don't you?
After the Olympics, I do. Sorry. Oh, I do not mean to make fun of that because I actually I appreciate what she did. I really do. I actually, weirdly enough, I appreciate Ray Gunn for what she did. In fact, I know that name is scary though. Anyway, I'll let you finish up.
I'm done. On that note, leave a comment about what you think I should watch for Rick and Morty. Let's see if we can find something that I will actually enjoy. I'm so far I'm 0-2 or 0-3 as far as episodes go, and I'm still willing to give it a shot, but
Yeah,
the window's closing.
Yeah, the ones I've been suggesting are like Citadel Rick type things. Pretty much the stuff that has to do with Evil Morty or has to do with screwing up their universe so much they have to swap universes. So
That's a feeling I know. Well, anyway, this has been the Midwestern goodbye.
Yeah.
Where we say, well, again.
Are you done yet, Jeff?
And good night.